started. One quirk of this room is we have a really good sound system, but in order to do a Teams meeting without these mics, the people online can't hear anything. And so we will ask you to use the mics if you're talking, if we have questions later. Button and it turns green. And then hello, that camera, to all the people online and hopefully viewing this later. We are recording this so that we can share it with your colleagues who couldn't make it today. First, we'll just do a quick round of introductions around the room, say who we are and who we work for. And I'll go ahead and start. I'm Claire Ross. I'm the Assembly's Legislative Services Director. I've been here 4 years. Before that, I worked for the Public Library for 12 years. And you'll learn more about our team through this presentation.
Yeah, hi, my name's Zach Johnson. I'm Anchorage Assembly member. I represent South Anchorage and the Girdwood communities. I'm also chair of the Anchorage Legislative Committee, which is why I'm the one you get here today. I guess I also just state, as a matter of full disclosure, I am married to a legislative aide, so I know what you guys do, and I appreciate you. If you guys don't mind, just make sure you tap that little button and get the green light.
Brianna Kakaruk, I work for Senator Matt Clayman.
Good afternoon. I'm Maxine. I work for Senator Wilikowski.
Sophie Weiser, I work for Rep. Ted Eishide.
Michaela Wilson, Constituent Relations Aide for the Legislative Service Office.
Kristen Walsh, staff to Representative Hall.
Carly Dennis, staff to Senator Matt Clayman.
JJ Jackson, staff to Representative Hall.
And before we get to the side, we'll go next. We're just doing it.
Hunter Lotsfeld, staff of Senator Dunbar.
Lacey Matula, staff to Representative Lise Galvin.
Sharon Johnson, staff to Representative Andy Josephson.
And Emma Torkelson, staff to Senator Kaufman.
And then running the teams. She doesn't have a mic, but that is Allie Hartman. She is the Assembly's Communications Director, and she'll be presenting later, so then you can hear directly from her. Oh, great. Yeah, maybe call. I think they could mute themselves. And so everyone on Teams, if you want to unmute yourselves and say hi.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
This Clark is from Senator.
Just listening in.
Okay.
Yeah,
Clark
Ted
from
Eishide
Senator.
Listening in.
Try again. I had my mic on.
This is Clark Bickford with Senator L.V. Gray Jackson's office. Thanks for hosting today.
And this is Grace Irvin with Rep. Kopp's office.
And this is Representative Ted Eishide, just listening in and out, doing other things, but thank you.
This is Jeremy Houston. I'm with Representative Calvin Troggy.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for all coming today. It's really nice to see you. Our goal of this session is just to get to know each other better and form some links between our offices so that we can be a resource for you, especially when you have constituent calls for municipal things. You just don't know where to go. We want to be there for you. And we want to get to know you better so that your bosses will give us more money. Just kidding. It's all collaborative. Okay. So first, I'll just tell you quickly about the Legislative Services Office. The Assembly has 4 offices, so you'll probably see the clerk's office most often. They're the ones running the meetings. And then we have Council's office. We have 3 staff in that office. And then the Ombudsman. And then we are the newest office, the Legislative Services Office. And we just started 4 years ago to help members with research, communications, project management, that sort of stuff. So we have 3 full-time staff, me, Allie, and then Jennifer Veneklassen is our legislative and policy analyst. And then we recently welcomed Michaela to our team in a part-time position, legislative or constituent services aide. Our mission is to strengthen the Anchorage Assembly and its work, guided by a commitment to the good of the Anchorage community and the people who live here. So we really seek to elevate the Assembly as an institution. We do work, I think ours is very unique, it's a little different than yours, that we don't work for one person. So we don't represent just one person's political alignment. We represent all 12. And so that for me is really fun because sometimes we're working on things that we don't agree with, but we want to help each member bring their ideas to the light of day and make them as good as possible. And sometimes we're helping one member on something and then we're helping another member something the opposite. And so it's just really dynamic and fun. And our goal is just to make the Assembly a stronger institution where there's more involvement from the community and that the Assembly's work is more visible in the community. So the mayor's office is going to be joining us, but I think they might have gotten caught up in other things. So when they duck in, we'll let them talk a little bit about their role with how they interact with the state legislature. And then next I will hand it to Zach to talk about the Assembly's legislative committee.
Yeah, thank you. So the Legislative Committee is one of 9 committees we have on the Assembly, which is paradoxically both too many and not enough committees. But it's our job. One of the roles is to provide guidance on federal and state legislation priorities that affect the municipality, provide coordination between the Assembly and the mayoral administration. We also provide a forum for updates and a dialogue. It's where we regularly hear from our state lobbyists and federal lobbyists on matters before them. And then I think the most visible piece of what we do for you all would be the legislative program, which is something we work on collaboratively, the Assembly and the administration in the fall, and then we formally adopt it by a resolution that we vote on. Oh, there's no one. Typically later in the year, and then that is the official priorities for the municipality of Anchorage that we bring to GNO. And then typically you'll see us show up in the spring and we'll walk around the building and try and meet with everyone and discuss what those are, right? So that is the formal program, but obviously, outside of that, we maintain an open dialogue to work with you all on sort of providing a forum and opportunity for that interface.
Great. Now the mayor and staff just walked in, so I'll invite, I can use my seat and there's one open seat over there if you want to come up and get on the mics. And Nolan, we were just going around telling them a little bit about how our offices interact with them. And then I think the mayor maybe had some words to share. So you all can come up and decide the order.
Well, hello, everyone, and thank you so much for being here today. Thank you, Legislative Services and Member Johnson, for putting this on. It's exciting to have you here, and I appreciate your interest and participation as we all work together to serve our community. I hope that you find the session helpful and get lots of information. We are always happy to help, and Nolan will introduce himself as well. And the number is 343. I don't call it often. 7100. And that's to our office. And please don't ever hesitate if there's ever anything that we can do. And I just really appreciate how we'll work together or continue to work together, those of you who are returning in your roles to serve our community. So thank you so much. And I guess I could have said my name. I'm Suzanne LaFrance, and I have the honor of serving as mayor of this incredible community. And again, excited to partner however we can to work together to move our entire community forward. And with that, I will turn to Nolan.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Nolan Clouda, and I am in the mayor's office. My title is Policy Director, and my role in the mayor's office, I wear a few hats, but one of them is that I do our state and federal relations. I kind of take point on our state and federal relations. And so I'm active in the development of our legislative program, which is underway right now. And I think you were hearing from Member Johnson about that. I oversee the work of our lobbyists as well. So both our state and federal. And so and then I generally am, if you don't know where to go in the municipality, but you have a municipal related question, I can serve as a good point of contact to point you in the right direction. So I field requests from several of you that I see here today. And whenever, if it's something to do as diverse as a public safety issue, a road issue, a road project, some property tax related question, I can be the one who can track down an answer for you if you're not sure exactly where to go. So if you need any input about it, whether it's about our legislative priorities, constituent types of issues, something that affects a municipal department or anything like that, please, you can come to me and I can be somebody who can sort it out for you, figure out where you need to go and get an answer for you, hopefully, very quickly. Try to send out email updates as well periodically too. So you guys have probably seen emails from me about, when we send periodic updates about things that are going on in the municipality. But in general, I like to be available and, here to help in any way that I can with any inquiries that any of your offices may have.
And I want to add too that we are joined by Barb Jones, who's Deputy Chief of Staff on my team. And Barb is a fountain of information, longtime municipal employee with experience in a number of different departments in both branches of government. So we have a lot of folks on our team who have a lot of knowledge and are always happy to help and connect you with the folks you need. Thanks. Thanks, Nolan.
I'm glad you gave Barb a plug because she developed this little gold mine that we are going to give to you. We've already, I think a lot of you have grabbed it, but there's a contact sheet out there and we're going to go into more details on it in a different presentation. But since she is here, I want to give her credit. We thought that would be very helpful for you to have at your desks, at your offices. If you have different constituent questions about strange municipal things, almost everything is on there. Thanks to Barb. All right, now I'll hand it over to Zach Johnson to talk about Assembly 101 and just give you a little bit more context about how the Assembly operates. Thank you so much, Mayor and Nolan, for being here.
Yeah, thank
Welcome
you.
to stay, or but I think you had another thing you have to go to. Or...
Yes, please. Oh, there we are, the Anchorage Assembly in all their glory. So the Anchorage Assembly is made up of 12 members. We represent 6 districts, so 2 members each throughout Anchorage. There was a time not too long ago when downtown had 1 member, which created a little bit of a disparity there, and that was changed, 5 or 6 years ago. So yeah, that's it. So wherever you are in Anchorage, we represent you. Our geographical boundaries stretch all the way from the Knik River down up into where you turn into Turnigan Pass. So as you are probably aware, the municipality of Anchorage is a combined city and borough. We're really celebrating that this year, but it means that we have a fairly large jurisdiction. If you are looking to get a hold of Assembly members, there is the email at the top. That's our mass Assembly email address. I dare say I think it gets spammed a bit, so I always encourage people to reach out to members individually. And certainly don't be shy about being persistent either. I'm just going to throw that out there. We do not necessarily have the benefit of individual staff members, so we don't have competent people like you to help us stay on top of things. So sometimes you just got to be the squeaky wheel. But if you're trying to figure out for you or anyone else who your Assembly member is, if you go to our muni.org website, which is kind of amazing that we got muni.org as a URL, but /assembly up at the top there, you can find a little button for find your district. And then when you click on that, it'll help you find your Assembly district. And I think it also provides information on legislative districts, which you guys probably don't need that, but
district and zoning and
yeah,
everything.
it's a one-stop shop. And then down there, you can click through a little map that shows you the geographic boundaries of each of the districts. There's District 1. District 6 is the last but best, and it's also the largest. Next slide, please. All right, so how is law passed in Anchorage? Slide 10, right? Yeah. So So changes to the assembly ordinances are our equivalent of state statute. And then the municipal charter is the equivalent of the local constitution. So changes to the charter require a ballot measure that is voted on by the population of Anchorage. And there is an avenue for petitions to add things to the ballot, but more typically what you'll see is the assembly will adopt by resolution a ballot measure that then goes to the voters. So it's usually a two-step process if we wish to make changes to the charter. And you've seen that discussed in recent history around things such as introducing a sales tax. Came up last year. Prior years, we had the marijuana tax and alcohol tax. So those went through the assembly, then ultimately the voters for approval. The Anchorage Municipal Code, which is our collection of local laws, if you will, also called the Code or AMC, that is voted on by the assembly. So an assembly ordinance can make changes to the Anchorage Municipal Code, and that's just simply a function of the assembly, subject to veto by the mayor, much as it works at the state level. Just similar things, different words. Also, other types of legislation we take up at the assembly, we have resolutions, which include financial appropriations, recognitions for individuals or community organizations, notable achievement, appointments to director level positions, and then also policy guidance you'll see sometimes. The assembly can adopt a resolution that provides recommendations or a strategic framework for the administration. One thing that I think is worth noting is if you read through them at first blush, they may sound like they are very impactful, but they are really just strongly worded letters, as we like to say. They don't carry any force of law. So we can provide recommendations, but it is up to the administration to take them or leave them in that case. We also have assembly memorandums. These are for contract approvals. They are also typically statements that will go along with an ordinance. So if you pick up an assembly ordinance and they're long and wordy, you guys know how statute typically is written and you're a little confused, what does this mean? Go to the memo that comes at the back of that, and there's usually a statement from the sponsors that says what it's trying to achieve and the intent of it. So that memo is a good point of reference. Also, we have assembly informational memorandums, which are typically reports that we need to enter into the record, audits, things of that nature. So there's a vote to incorporate those, but they are informational only in nature. And I'll just say too, if you're reading through this and trying to figure out why these things are in these categories, you are not alone if you're confused, but that is how we do business. Also, I'll just note that legislation can be sponsored by an assembly member or members, up to 3. Well, then members can add themselves later. It can also come from the mayor's office or from a department through the chair or mayor. One notable difference between assembly business and the state legislature is ordinances, proposals do not have to go through committee. We often discuss them there, but there is no requirement that they take that step. So any member can introduce a ordinance or any other piece of legislation and get it onto the agenda. So what is the process for adopting these things? So the ordinances, the changes to code, they have to be introduced at one meeting, and we cannot take action when they're introduced. It has to happen not earlier than the following assembly meeting. And sometimes it'll take more time than that. And that is due in part to the fact that there needs to be an opportunity for a public testimony on ordinance items. So if we're looking to change local code, when we go to take action on it, after it has been introduced and added to the agenda, members of the public can come up and testify. Everyone's given 3 minutes, unless you're representing a community council, in which case you get 5 minutes to speak on the topic. And then once that public hearing is closed, then it becomes open to action by the assembly. Resolutions, memorandums, and AIMs, those can be introduced and passed at the same meeting. There's no requirement for that 2-week period. There's also no requirement, nor is there an opportunity at the assembly meeting for public testimony on these things. So you may occasionally hear from people, as I do. There was a resolution with a budget appropriation, and people are like, why wasn't I given the opportunity to get up and talk about that contract or the appropriation? Well, that's just not our process. Ordinances are public testimony items. The others are not. They're decided by the assembly. We take action on those directly. Bigger items, so we're thinking about maybe more consequential ordinances, things that maybe make a major change to statute or process. Those are not required to, but often do go through a committee meeting or a work session. So it's not atypical that if you see something on the agenda, assembly members may ask that we have a work session on this to provide an opportunity to have a more informal conversation or informational opportunity to better dig into and understand the impacts of what we're discussing. So with life cycle, we meet twice a month, every Tuesday, 5 to 11 p.m. if we're lucky, sometimes midnight. That is mercifully a hard stop for us. And we are always in session. Unlike the legislature, we are in business 12 months out of the year, twice a month for the official actions at the assembly meeting. That is the only place where we can take official action, by the way. All the work sessions and committee meetings outside of that, we are not, do not carry out votes that affect legislative items. They're informational more in nature. As I mentioned already, the public hearings is an opportunity for people to speak. We also have an open forum, I'll say at the beginning and end of public assembly meetings where people can sign up to testify or to simply wait their turn and speak at the end. When ordinances come up from action, we have a motion on what to do with it, motion to approve, postpone, et cetera. And then that is where we get into the assembly members' opportunity to engage in debate and also present amendments and go through all those steps. So the most typical, I think, motions you'll see is motion to approve, pretty self-explanatory. And then also postponement happens fairly often, as I think we'll address in a later slide. We do not have the same opportunities to engage with each other directly that folks at the state legislature do. So often if there are questions or concerns about an item, we will allow more time to present an opportunity for the assembly to engage in that conversation instead of trying to do it at the regular meeting where it's really about debate and action on it. So postponement is not at all atypical. It says down there, we may schedule a work session, never mandatory, but sometimes requested. There may be substitute versions coming either from an original sponsor or another member can offer a substitute version. Also note that while often it is the original sponsor that chooses which version to move, there's no requirement to do that. So any member can move any version when the item comes up. Ask me how I know that. And then also sometimes you'll see the decision to postpone something indefinitely. Now, one little distinction I'll make is postponement indefinitely is typically understood, I think, to mean that the item will not be, the assembly has no intent to take action on it, but that is not the same as voting it down. Something can be postponed indefinitely and then brought back at any subsequent follow-up meeting. And I think people in the public get confused about that sometimes. They say it was postponed, it's definitely, I thought that was dead. Nope, that's not how it works. It's just lying dormant. So just one distinction I will make. So the Open Meetings Act, this was the Alaska State Legislature's idea of what the gold standard for transparency and good government should look like. And then they exempted themselves from it, but it does apply to us, which means that you cannot have more than 3 members working together on a project or really gathering or communicating outside of anything that is not publicly noticed. So if you want to invite assembly members to your birthday party, you can only have 3, or you have to provide public notice and invite everyone else who wants to attend. So that also plays into, we often don't have a good sense of where the body's going to lie. People will come to me and say, Zach, you're on the assembly. I see this coming up next week. Do you think it's going to pass? And I don't know, because I can't go around and query my colleagues on where they stand on that. And this is one of those things where sometimes we'll give ourselves opportunity to take more time and discuss it in an appropriate place. But yeah, the OMA has a major influence on how we do business. Anytime you see us all gathered here, assembly chambers, it has to be open to the public, and that's why we do what we do. It's also one of the reasons why you only get one assembly member here today. So yeah, talk about the public piece. Work sessions are just informational. We will typically invite subject matter experts or sponsors to present on the topic. There's no opportunity for public testimony. Again, sometimes we have people show up because sometimes we are dealing with contentious or meaty issues. And people say, well, wait a second, I thought these were all open and there'd be an opportunity for testimony. Nope, not at the work sessions. However, committees, we do set aside time at the end for anyone from the public who wishes to testify either here in person or also on the phone. Maybe it's about 10 committees, 9 or 10. We meet monthly. I think the way we organize our committees is not that dissimilar from folks at the state. They're generally functionally divided: legislative, budget, finance, public safety, et cetera. But we do make sure that every department in the municipality has a committee to which they maybe answer to is not quite right. But there's a committee that provides a forum. So whether it's the police department, the fire department, budget, health department, they have a committee where they have an opportunity to bring and present. Moving on.
Seamless transition. I love it. Hello, everyone. My name is Allie Hartman. I am the Assembly Communications Director. And for those of you that I waved to here in the room, hello. And then for those of you who didn't hear me online, hello. Today, I am here to talk about, I just went. Gotcha. Okay, now we're zooming through all of this. I'm here to tell you about your resources to access the Assembly. These are resources that the constituents that you work with all have publicly available to them. And I'm really proud of our work in legislative services to build upon all of the work of the clerk's office and the Assembly over the past couple of years to really make the work of the legislative body accessible to the public. So I hope that you use these resources, that you find yourself leaning on them. And then I want you to know that there are real human beings on the other side of the screen that want to make it better. And so if you have ideas or thoughts or you're running into issues, we are here to receive that feedback and to implement it and continue to improve what we do. Oh, it's kind of, it's very sensitive. Oh, okay, there we go. This all is grounded in the Assembly work plan. So every year, the Assembly as a body has a conversation about what are our priorities for the year. And those priorities come together in a document called the work plan, which is available online, and we update it quarterly with a status update across all of those priorities. But they do identify top priorities, and these are the top priorities for 2025. I think they'll probably resonate with the work that you're doing in Juneau. Housing action, being that Anchorage and the entire state is experiencing a housing shortage crisis. Energy, infrastructure, and transportation is a big old bucket with a whole bunch of different funding sources and teams, agencies all involved. Public health, safety, and quality of life is really how residents experience local government in their day-to-day. And good government is about upholding, values for what it means to be local government and really seeing that work implemented across all of the public departments. So it's about the municipal workforce, it's about transparency and accountability and all that good stuff. So as they work through their work plan, we deliver updates and information to the public through a number of publications that, like I said earlier, I'm really proud of. We publish a newsletter after every regular Assembly meeting, and there will be a QR code here at the end of my section where you'll have the opportunity to subscribe if you're not already. If you subscribe here while we're in this room, you'll get an update in about an hour, which is very exciting. So you all have the inside scoop on that. We also issue press releases. So those are news updates that either come from individual or a group of members as sponsors. The Assembly as a body might take an action and we'll issue a press release after that. And then that we deliver those to folks' inboxes through the same subscription service that our newsletters and other updates are released. And then finally, we have the website. And if you are online and you're participating in this meeting on Teams, then you're seeing some website links come through the chat. We'll make those website links available to you, but the long and the short of it is running down at the bottom of this slide. It's www.muni.org/assembly, where you can find the Assembly's business sorted by committee, sorted by work session, or sorted by priority area, focus areas. Lots of really great info on the website because the Assembly is so transparent. The last piece of this slide is the outreach that Assembly members do. They often are giving presentations that might be about a specific policy project that they're working on, or at a community council meeting giving those regular updates, right? So I certainly invite you all to be thinking about if there are policy areas where legislators across levels of government are working on something similar. That could be a great opportunity to bring those folks together with constituents and talk about that issue. That's something that we support as well. Okay. Now we're going to talk and I'll detail some of these online resources. This is the Assembly website. If you were to go to muni.org/assembly, and there's a tab, resources, and these are all readily accessible to you. We could click around, but I think today I'm just going to go through the slides themselves to show you what each of these resources look like and talk a little bit about why you might want to find them. The first is the public portal to Assembly documents. Oh, one of my favorite tools online. This thing is great. It is a database of all of the legislation that the Assembly has taken up, whether it's been approved or postponed indefinitely or voted down entirely. It exists on the public portal to Assembly documents. It dates all the way back to 1975. Super cool. You can search the documents that you're looking for. If you walk away from this training and you're like, oh, now I'm real savvy on what an ordinance is or a resolution, more power to you. That's awesome. But you can just leave that whole field blank and just use keywords or, oh yeah, I'm hearing about this now. So it probably happened in the last like 3 months, and use that date range. And it's a really handy way of navigating all of the legislation that is a part of the public record. Next resource that is highly important and relevant to our work is Anchorage Municipal Code, our local laws. The Municipal Code exists as an online portal where you can browse chapter by chapter, title by title, section by section, and you can click on the legislative history behind each section of code. It is searchable, which is super handy. It is also slightly lagging. So if the Assembly were to take action, say this upcoming Tuesday, to revise municipal code by adopting an ordinance, the municipal code online would not be updated for a few months, right? It is all the more reason for you to be plugged into our communications pipeline and to be staying up to date on what the Assembly has been up to so that you're not following that lag and that you have the up-to-date information. But by and large, the municipal code online is accurate, and they also have a log there at the top of ordinances that have been adopted but not yet incorporated into that online version of the code. Oh my goodness. Okay. Meeting agendas. Our meeting agendas are printed. They are available as like a PDF document with all of the pieces of legislation behind the agenda. Or you can access them online in an interactive meeting agenda. Super handy. I'll pass out as you all are headed out. We have a little bookmark guide to accessing the interactive agenda and what to look out for, especially as it relates to public involvement, because these meetings are very long, but there are agenda sections and each of those sections has a purpose. And so you'll find that accessing the meeting agenda online is super handy because you can, Control F and find what you're looking for. You can open up each part of the legislative packet, so the ordinance as well as the memo that goes along with it and the summary of economic effects that's showing what the cost of that thing is. But it's also a pro-user resource for the Assembly meetings to visit after the meeting. Once a meeting has concluded, the entire meeting agenda is time-stamped. So the ordinance that the Assembly was debating, when you click on it, that little YouTube thumbnail over here updates to where in the meeting they were. So you can watch the debate on 2 times speed and get all the more information out of it. So it's super handy after the meeting, just as much as it is before the meeting. Finally, the Assembly calendar. You can check out all of their upcoming meetings, work sessions, committee meetings on their website. This is also a great way for you to access the recordings or call into a meeting. And then there's that meeting link for those agendas and recordings. My last piece here, the long-awaited signing up for our newsletter. When you scan this QR code or click the call to action on the website, you will be invited to tell us a little bit about yourself. You can opt into your own Assembly district's updates or updates from other Assembly districts too. And then you will have the option to opt into different types of updates. So I mentioned the regular meeting newsletter, our press releases, but then also targeted updates on hot topics like housing, homelessness, public safety, etc. As I mentioned, I'm just really proud of the work that we do, and I see you, each and every one of you, as a partner in doing that work, and look forward to hearing more from you. Thank you all.
We're going to leave time at the end for Q&A, but if you have any questions pop up as we're talking, feel free to ask. And same thing, people online, you can enter in the chat and Allie is monitoring that. Okay, next we wanted to tell you more about how the municipal budget works. I feel like our budgets are languages and I can read the Muni one pretty well, but when I look at the state one, it's like Greek to me. So I'm sure it'll be the opposite for you all. This is a presentation. Assemblymember Anna Brawley is the Budget and Finance Committee Chair, and she put this presentation together. That's just a really great overview. You probably know, but when we're talking to the general public, why care about the municipal budget? It's so bureaucratic and boring, but this is affecting our daily lives. It has to do with the effectiveness of our snow removal, when our libraries are open, how many playgrounds we have, and how good our public emergency services are. And so a lot of us on the Assembly, the members and staff, say that the budget is a reflection of our community's values and visions and priority. And so we really encourage people to get involved in the budget because that's really how you can shape the future of our community. So the municipal budget is divided into some separate sections. We have an operating budget that covers our services like fire, police, parks, libraries. We also have, the municipality has several enterprises, AWU, Anchorage Community Development Authority, the Port, Solid Waste Services, and Merrill Field. The enterprises don't use property taxes to run, they use their fees, and then that funds their operations, so they have separate budgets. And then we do a capital budget, which is broken down into things that we put on the bonds in the spring, and then things that we ask the state and federal for, as well as private grants. And then in recent years, we've added alcohol and marijuana taxes, and those are dedicated funds. The alcohol tax is dedicated for violence prevention, public safety, homelessness, and substance misuse. And then the marijuana tax is dedicated towards early education and childcare. We're right in the middle of our budget season right now. And so just last week or so, the mayor's team released, it's called the 120-day memo, which is a great name, but it's actually a really interesting document. And they had a work session last Friday, which you can find on our recordings, that I thought was really top notch, just explaining our city's financial picture and their goals for the future, what revenues we expect, what decreases, increases. And I think if you were to watch the first 20 minutes of that work session, it would really give you a good understanding of where the city's finances are. And that was, it's called a work session on the 120-day memo, if you're going to go back and look at our meeting recordings. So the mayor will be giving the Assembly the budget around October 1st. The Assembly reviews it. There's some work sessions coming up on Fridays in October to do deep dive for the departments to present on that. And then there are public hearings, one at the end of October and one in early November, that the public can come testify. You can also email and members check those and take that into account when they're making budget decisions. And then in mid-November, the Assembly votes on the budget. They continue that cycle all over again in April in a smaller version with the first quarter budget revision. And that's when they have the final picture of what the 2025 year was. If budgets didn't spend out all of their money, then there might be some remaining money. Some budgets might go over. And so then in April, they look at the actual things that happened the prior year and make a few small shifts. It's usually not too big. How is the municipality funded? This year, our budget is $648 million, and you will see that 58% of that comes from property taxes, which is a big chunk. 21% comes from other taxes, such as the room, vehicle rental, alcohol, marijuana, and then only 3% comes from the state and federal government. And then we do have some revenue from permits, licenses. A fairly big source of revenue is investment income. So I worked here in 2009 when we had that big stock market crisis, and that hurt the muni because a lot of our money was wrapped up in investments. And when we lost that money, that's how we operate the muni. We have a tax cap in the municipality. So it's this formula that is above my head, but it pretty much keeps the budget the same year after year. It takes into account inflation and population increases. And so some of the taxes are under that tax cap. And so if we were to have a big gas tax and tax 100% on gas, that just means that property taxes go down. It doesn't mean the municipality has more money. But if we were to initiate an alcohol tax, a sales tax, that could be on top of the cap, which would give the municipality additional revenue, and it would keep property taxes the same. So we hear this a lot. Maybe you all hear it too. Are property taxes high? Yes. Anchorage has some of the higher property taxes in the country, but we consistently rank as the lowest overall burden in the country because we don't have sales tax in Anchorage and we don't have an income tax in Alaska. And so there's a lot of different resources. The District of Columbia used to calculate the tax rates for the biggest city in each state, but they stopped that a couple of years ago. But they did some great analysis of what someone who makes $50,000 pays in Anchorage versus New York City versus LA. And that was really interesting. They're not doing that anymore, but I did get this is 2025 data about Anchorage has the lowest tax burden of a big city. So why is the municipality largely funded by property tax? You'll notice I pointed out that this year 58% of our property taxes are funded, or of our budget is funded by property taxes. You'll see in the 1980s it was more like 36%. And this is because state aid has shrunk a ton since the 80s. It used to provide about 42% of Anchorage's general government revenue. And as you recall from that last slide, it's about 3% now when you combine it with federal revenue. And so that was, a series of choices over many years. And I know the state is facing shrinking funding too. So not to place the blame, but just to give you a better picture of what the municipality is up against. When the feds collect more tax or collect less taxes and fund less things, and they push it on to states. And then when the states don't have the money, they push it on to cities, and then cities push it on to property taxpayers. And that's one of the few resources the municipality has to make the budgets meet. So that's why, and I'm preaching a little bit here. Maybe this is outside my role, but I am passionate about this topic. But a lot of times when people complain, there's so many people who are experiencing homelessness out on the streets. Why can't you clean it up? Why aren't our roads getting plowed like they were back in the 90s when I moved here? Well, this is why. There's just a lot less money to go around. And our population is going down, but all of those roads we built up onto the hillside and out and about still have to be maintained if there's 10 people living up there or 9 people living up there. So that's just the predicament the municipality is in right now. Why has state funding dropped? I think you're probably all familiar with the community assistance program now that used to be called revenue sharing. In 1985, the state gave payments of $141 million to local governments, which is $412 million in 2024 dollars. Then in 2009, when that economic crisis happened, and that was the first time I think the state really started making big cuts, they changed that program and they reduced that to $60 million. And I didn't do the inflation proofing, so I don't know what that would be in today's dollars, but it was quite a big drop. And then in 2016, it was cut again to 30 million, which I believe is what it is now. So as a result, in 2016, funding to local governments was cut by 50% from the 2009 levels. I've done some research. I can't find any more recent calculations, but nationally, states allocate about 30% of their budgets for local governments. And then in 2017, Alaska ranked 40th in terms of percent allocated to local governments, which is just at 16%. I think the good news is that the municipality is in really good financial health. We just had the budget the Assembly had the Budget and Finance Committee meeting today, and they got an update on the audit. You might have heard we're behind on our audits, but catching up, and it's looking like we're in pretty good financial shape. Almost 100% of the COVID costs were reimbursed by FEMA and showing back up in our budget. We had the earthquake that cost a lot of money to recover from, and that's been almost all recovered now too. And then we added new sources in Anchorage with the marijuana and alcohol tax. So I think the municipality has done a really good job of maintaining the services to a pretty good level as much as they can with the shrinking funding. But it just means we're doing more with less, or more with the same amount, but just coming from property taxes than other sources. And so with that tax cap, you see it keeps our budgets really steady. So in 1983, our budget was in 2025 dollars, 629 million. We had 211 residents. And then this year, our budget is 648 million with 283,000 residents. So because the tax cap went in place in 83, it means our budget is pretty much the same every year. A little higher because we have a little more residents. So what's next? The reason why Member Brawley put these slides together is to educate our community on the financial picture. And we need to make some decisions. If we are fine with the level of services and we really don't want to pay more taxes, then we can keep things the way it is. If people want more services, we're going to have to figure out how to pay for them. I know that you all on the state are looking at the exact same scenario with maybe different funding sources, but same problem. But I do think there are some creative solutions. We have been creative with the alcohol and marijuana taxes, and we don't have to do things the way it's always been done. So hopefully we'll be coming up with some creative solutions the next couple of years. All right, with that, I will pass it on to Michaela. Do you want me to run your slides for you? Okay.
Okay.
She's going to talk about common constituent communications, things that come up a lot with the Assembly members.
I think mine will be the easiest. I'm just going to talk about common constituent relations or communications. So some that Assembly members get or the Legislative Service Office gets is street maintenance, traffic calming, tax questions, public safety issues, public safety, properties, development or permitting issues, parks and recreation. And yeah, this is both to the state level and the local level that they send these emails to. But this, I don't think everybody can see this, but this lays out really good contact information provided by the mayor's office to be able to reach out. Common issues have co-occurring departments that deal with them. So sometimes it can be someone takes a picture of someone who's here. So it can be a public safety issue, but it can also be the Parks and Rec if it deals with that property. So just looking at that. These are, so street maintenance is if someone's having a specific issue with their street in their neighborhood, you can call that number, also provided on the sheet. Or if it's a bigger problem, then talking with the CIP coordinator. And also, if you don't know, you don't know. So just always reach out. I guess Nolan over here was good with the mayor's office too, but yeah. And snow removal. I still haven't dealt with any snow removal because everything happens in the winter time. So also with the snow removal, but potholes, what can be done with the potholes is calling the pothole hotline for the 342 men 6363 or the toolkit. Yeah, that was talked about earlier. And speeding and traffic calming. If people are calling about people are driving too fast in my street, what can I do? That's also the process that's outlined in that link. And also these slides will be provided also afterwards. And then also all the links that have been rolling through by Allie will be provided too in the email. Yeah. And then taxes, how do I address a tax related matter? You can contact the municipal tax department office at the number 907-343-6650 or the treasury website too. Public safety. If anybody has a public safety issue, they can contact these numbers. And also, like I said, I've seen a lot of emails where the public safety has been in relation to the Parks and Rec. So just looping them into the issue as well. It's related to the trail system. But yeah. And then, yeah, who do I call if there's a nuisance property or unsafe building is calling code enforcement. Yeah, code enforcement abatement deals with private property. You can also report on AnkWorks. That okay. And then development and
Do you have more
permitting.
on that?
I think that's the last one. Okay. Great. Oh, okay. You know, you're good. Yeah, I'm thinking about doing XYZ improvement to my home. Where should I start? Contacting the planning or building services would be the best bet. And that's also provided in the contact list as well. Parks and facilities. Okay. What do I do if I have a park or recreation facility question? And that's contacting Parks and Rec at that number. And then ideas for park improvements is also reaching out to park maintenance or, check the CIP list. Yeah. Or contacting Anchorage Park Foundation. So general. Yeah. Okay. There we go. What local issues do you receive from constituents? That's kind of looping back into assembly members receiving questions from constituents, but then also on a state level, kind of that collaboration between the two instead of just looping in assembly members, how can it can go straight to departments and streamline to them instead of just going to assembly members because they're busy people and sometimes they are very receptive or they have busy lives and they can't be as receptive. So how can we streamline that process to go straight to departments? So what questions or concerns you see most from constituents? That is the question.
I think that one of the most common things that I get in my office is people calling because they have reported something on AnkWorks, and that is a wonderful website, and they see it on the map and they see that it's a little dot, but then a month goes by and nothing's happened. And so they call our office. And a lot of the times in that situation, I'm just not quite sure what to do.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, ultimately, if you're not getting the response you're looking for, does not hurt to reach out to your local assembly member, right? And we're happy, I can't speak for everyone, but I think generally we're happy to go make inquiries to the various departments and get answers for you. It's certainly something I spend a lot of my time doing. But I do always encourage people to go to Anchorage Works first, right? You know, because then it's documented that we know that there's an incident and therefore hopefully nobody's surprised when we follow up on it.
Okay, there we go. I think our number one thing is almost always like questions on homelessness. If it hasn't snowed recently, then that's number one. But usually we refer people to like the website where they can report a camp, and usually that does the trick. But I guess I was curious the other day if there's a phone number or a person who's in charge of that. Somebody was asking for a phone number. So I don't know if there's like a point person that we can refer people to, or any other advice you have on giving information for that issue, which is, I know, a tough one.
I think it'd be a similar response in that I encourage people to kind of use the systems in place. You know, yes, there are people in the mayor's office who are kind of the lead people on homelessness. So if you need a point of contact, Thea Agnew-Beban is running point there with the administration. So she's a good resource to go towards. And I do know for the most part that I think when the camps are getting reported, you know, they are being noted and there is follow-up that happens, right? They triage these reports as they come in to determine, you know, what the level of urgency is to address it. And then what can we address? Like we recently put restrictions on where camps can be. So if it's in a prohibited area, then I think you'd expect action more quickly than if it's somewhere where it's, you know, not outright legally prohibited, but still, you know, they are going out there. I think they usually have a pretty quick response to at least go out, look at the camp, assess it, and make sure that they have it documented.
I'll add on to that. Thea in the mayor's office is pretty incredible. She sometimes gets CC'd on chains where she's planning out the whole city's homelessness policy, and she's also responding to a lot of individual requests. So she's probably not thrilled to have us give out her name because she's trying to do all these things, but she's been pretty responsive when individuals have questions. And I do think one thing that came up, I was on a chain with her recently, is the group had reported the camp. And I think one muni cleaning team had come clean it up and then put the trash bags out. And then the trash bags were out for a couple of weeks. And then they wanted it done immediately. And Thea had to explain, well, they're still finishing up another camp on this side. I mean, it's like whack-a-mole, there's camps all over. So sometimes you report it and it does take a couple weeks just because they're dealing with it all over town.
Yeah, just one stat I think I can throw out. Parks and Recs last year did, I think, 20,000 person hours invested into cleaning up camps. So it's a lot.
Any other feedback on questions you regularly get or questions that you have on our presentations?
I think just an idea that I have always had in terms of the homelessness, it's definitely one of the most common things that we get calls on. It would be really helpful if the Muni or the Assembly provided just a one-pager of how would you ideally like legislative staff to be responding to these kinds of calls? And you can almost divide it into, there's people who are calling about like trash in their neighborhood, or there's people who are calling about one tent, or there's multiple people calling about an established encampment. What is your ideal way that you would like to have us doing that, or contacting the Muni about that? Another piece of feedback that I have is that this is amazing, and I've never had this many contacts at the Muni in front of me in one place. It would be amazing if maybe you could even add a column that says what these departments do, that maybe we get a lot of common questions about. I know Michaela probably knows a lot of things that people are calling about and why you might need to contact the property tax line, to just give people an idea in the legislature of the complaint that they're receiving and who's the appropriate person to talk to about it. I think a lot of the time in the legislature, constituent services is an entry-level position. We're in the interim right now, and we're going to have a lot of new incoming staff. And sometimes that knowledge just becomes like institutional of what to do, but having something in front of you to give to a new staffer or to even just keep up to date yourself would be super helpful.
We're dealing a lot right now with like vacant houses that are being taken over, or in contact, I think it's code enforcement that boards those up. So like you said, like if I looked at this and saw code enforcement, I would not know that that's part of their job, that they can help clear out houses and board them up so that people aren't inside them again. But on that topic, we're kind of running into like, once it's boarded up, nothing happens, or like it's hard to figure out what the next step is. Would that be a public safety matter? Like if people are still getting inside vacant houses?
Yeah, I think if people are continuing to get into the houses, especially, if it's a safety issue, I mean, that would either be code enforcement or, depending on the nature, it might be a police response. How do we ultimately long-term solve for these vacant and abandoned properties? Like, that is a challenge. We maintain a registry of vacant and abandoned properties, and we've had different ideas about how to typically demolish them. And a lot of it, as so many things, comes down to a funding challenge. And we've explored different ideas. We had the Anchorage Authority was trying to get some congressionally delegated funding to set up a fund to rehabilitate some of these properties. That has not come forward yet. We have done a couple pilot programs to demo some of the worst properties and get them, ready for redevelopment. I mean, that's ultimately what we want. But just at this point, it's slow going just due to fiscal constraints.
A follow up on that. I guess how does it work with like who owns that property when it's abandoned or it becomes vacant? Is that automatically the Muni that takes care of that? And sorry, I just lost my second one.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't have a perfect answer to that one. I mean, if there's a public safety issue, then yes, I think that's a Muni responsibility. Properties that are on the vacant and abandoned registry, like I said, we track them. And if there's a certain degree of delinquency in property taxes, we can, take ownership of them. But I'm not sure exactly what the threshold is for that. So a lot of these properties are still being owned by individuals. And technically they are responsible, I believe, for maintaining them in a certain condition. But obviously some are failing to do so.
Yeah, I think that's why you see it boarded up for so long, is someone still owns it, so the community can't just take it. There's a pretty long process, and we have real estate services, Tiffany.
Briggs.
Briggs, like I work with her all the time, just blanked on her last name. A couple of times a year, we'll put up the list of ones that the municipality finally has claim over. But like, yeah, it's still a person somewhere in the world that owns it that we're trying to track down and follow the process to get it.
Thank you so much for putting together that context sheet, because I think that's something we've always kind of wanted to help reduce the number of questions we have to send for Noland or others. Are you able to provide it electronically as well to us? Thank you.
Yeah, we'll be sending that and slides and links to you in a follow-up email. And hopefully remembering to send you updated versions when we update it.
A lot of time people will call us and they want money for certain projects in their neighborhood, and sometimes that falls into the state's bucket, and sometimes that falls into the muni's bucket. And in the past, if there's somebody who's very persistent about it and they really care about it, and maybe they have a neighbor who also cares about it, I've told them to get involved more with their community council. Can you talk a little bit about like how community councils and the resolutions that they pass, are they important in the budget process?
Yeah, the community councils are one of the routes to get those projects. We just rearranged the schedule, and so it happened, I think, in the spring, early spring, like January, February time now. But each community council, and this is actually something we could probably use your help in, each community council is sent a link to the survey where they can rate their community council's projects. So some of them are very proactive, and they'll have meetings months in advance where they're up on the blackboard writing ideas down. And others, the link goes to someone who's not on the community council anymore and they just never respond. And so that's been something Legislative Services Office has been trying to get the word out to more community councils to make sure they know about that opportunity. And then it's one factor. In the links I'll send you, we have a really cool map of all of Anchorage projects. And if I'm pretty sure if someone just logs that there's potholes on, or no more than potholes, but a street that needs to be repaired, even if it's not in our capital budget program yet, I think it goes onto that map. And so Chelsea Ward Waller is in project management and engineering with the city, and she is taking community councils. They do drive-bys and assess streets and parks and facilities, and then they put this master list together. So yeah, the community council process is an important part of that.
Does passing a resolution in a community council give something, does it just more legitimize the issue?
Yeah, I think so. It's up to individual assembly members, right? How seriously they take those. They don't carry, any force to them, but certainly I pay attention to the resolutions that come from the community councils, because they're there to be the voice for that local community, right? So I certainly pay attention to them. One thing I'll add to the kind of roads thing, because this comes up a lot in South Anchorage, maybe less so for people closer to the urban core, but Anchorage is divided into a series of different service areas, and most of Anchorage exists within the road and drainage service area. And then as you move further out towards South Anchorage and the hillside, you have limited road service areas, et cetera. And then you have some communities and roads that just don't fall into any of those. We also have a number of state roads. So I get a lot of calls from people saying, my road is in terrible shape, please come fix it, the drainage, whatever. If they're not in a service area, we can't fix it. There's no local money. We cannot take municipal money and devote it towards a road project that is not in a service area. So, we do what we can to help people, but just that is the hard reality. And the benefit to them is they pay less in taxes, but that is the consequence.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate all of the resources that you guys have put together. Super helpful.
Thank you all for coming. It's just so nice I know almost all of your names from email, so it's nice to put faces to the names, and we just want to be a resource for you, and hopefully we can communicate back and forth more. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.